A letter to Dr. Neely Fuller Jr. Thank you for leaving me a guide for understanding the world I live in. As you say, if you don't understand white supremacy, racism, everything that you do understand will only confuse you. And I am guilty of being confused throughout a large part of my life. After reading your book and listening to you, I had a lot of questions, and you graciously shared a guide and a structured method for victims of racism to counter white supremacy in all areas of my life. Through your teachings, I learned white supremacy is the dominant system of governance in the world. It operates through deception and violence. It affects all aspects of life, shaping interactions between white and non-white people. I can see this in these areas of my life where this control is exerted: economics, how racism affects money, jobs, trade and resources; education, how knowledge and information are controlled; entertainment, how media and culture reinforce racism; labor, how racism influences the workplace and employment; law, how legal systems uphold white supremacy; politics, how policies and power structures are designed to maintain white dominance; religion, how religious institutions contribute to racial oppression; sex, how racism manipulates relationships, gender roles and reproduction; war/counter-war, how white supremacy uses war, police and violence to maintain control. You taught me to be independent of thought and that I don't need a leader when I lead through my thoughts, my speech and my actions. That I should use these as a canvas to create justice. You taught me this code that I need to understand and emulate as closely as possible. To minimize my conflict within the community, speak only when necessary. This shows me I still have a ways to go. Ask questions instead of argue, control my emotions at all times, and to focus on the log in my own eye, rather than the splinter in others. You gave steps for a disciplined, systematic approach that prioritizes logic, self-control, and constructive behavior over emotional reactions or disorganized resistance. Now, I would like to share with you a draft for a guide to justice. This guide provides a framework for dismantling white supremacy and replacing it with a fully realized justice system that ensures fairness, dignity, and opportunity for all people. Justice is defined as guaranteeing that no person is mistreated and ensuring that those in need receive the most constructive help. This guide offers actionable steps for individuals, communities, and institutions to implement justice across all areas of life. Economic justice, redistribution, and community ownership. Current issues: extreme wealth inequality and racialized poverty, predatory banking and loan discrimination, exploitation of labor in non-white communities, solutions and actions, universal basic income, UBI. Ensure all people have a financial baseline. Community land trusts, prevent gentrification and secure housing for marginalized groups. Worker cooperatives, shift corporate ownership into collective ownership models. Reparations, financial compensation and land allocation to those harmed by systemic racism. Steps to implement: advocate for UBI policies through local and national campaigns, support and invest in cooperative businesses. Organize financial literacy programs in communities. Educational justice, decolonizing knowledge and empowering minds. Current issues: whitewashed history and erasure of colonial and racial injustice. Racial disparities in school funding and access to quality education. School-to-prison pipeline disproportionately targeting Black and brown students. Solutions and actions, culturally inclusive curriculum. Teach accurate global history, including colonial resistance. Free education at all levels. Make education accessible to all, removing financial barriers. Equitable school funding. Ensure resources are distributed based on need, not race or zip code. Steps to implement: pressure school boards to adopt decolonized curricula. Support free tutoring programs and mentorship initiatives. Advocate for policies ensuring equal funding for all schools. Media and entertainment justice, representation and narrative control. Current issues include media monopolies that reinforce stereotypes and erase diverse stories. Black trauma is often exploited for profit, while success stories are ignored. There's also limited ownership of media networks by non-white communities. The solutions and actions we can take involve establishing community-owned media networks to create independent platforms for diverse narratives. We need to end stereotypical representation by promoting accurate and empowering portrayals in film and television. It's crucial to support Black and Indigenous creators by increasing funding and distribution access. Steps to implement these changes include subscribing to and promoting non-white-owned media outlets. We should create independent funding streams for minority filmmakers and journalists. Finally, we need to challenge media corporations to diversify their leadership and content. Labor justice, worker power, and economic security. Current issues in this area include racial wage gaps and workplace discrimination. Essential workers are often underpaid and lack necessary protections. AI and automation disproportionately impact non-white labor forces. To address these problems, we need to establish living wages and wage transparency policies to ensure pay equity. Strengthening union power and promoting worker cooperatives can shift power dynamics in workplaces. Regulating AI and automation is essential to ensure technology supports workers rather than replacing them. Steps to implement these solutions include joining and supporting labor unions that advocate for wage equity. We should push for legislation that mandates salary transparency. Additionally, demanding corporate responsibility for AI-driven job displacement is crucial. Legal justice, equal protection, and prison abolition. Current issues involve disproportionate incarceration rates for Black and brown individuals, racial bias in policing and sentencing, and the exploitation of prison labor. Solutions and actions include developing community-based safety programs to replace traditional policing with restorative justice models. We need to end private prisons and cash bail, shifting resources to rehabilitation and prevention. Ensuring universal legal representation is vital for equal access to legal defense. Steps to implement these changes involve supporting initiatives that fund community-based alternatives to policing. We should advocate for policies that eliminate for-profit prison systems. Finally, pushing for public defenders to be properly funded and accessible is necessary for true legal justice. Political justice, democracy for the people. Let's talk about some of the pressing issues we face today. Voter suppression tactics are disproportionately targeting non-white communities. Corporate influence in politics often outweighs the needs of marginalized groups. And there's a limited representation of non-white leaders in government, but there are solutions and actions we can take. Participatory democracy, shifting power to communities through direct engagement. Publicly funded elections, ending private campaign donations and lobbying. Equitable political representation, ensuring governance reflects all racial and economic groups. Now, what are the steps we can take to implement these solutions? We can organize voter registration and turnout initiatives, support candidates who prioritize justice policies, and demand campaign finance reform. Seven, religious and spiritual justice, freedom without oppression. Current issues. Religion has been used as a tool of colonialism and racial oppression. Indigenous spiritual practices have been erased or criminalized. Megachurches hoard wealth while communities suffer. Solutions and actions. Restoration of indigenous and African spirituality. Protect and uplift native traditions. Religious institutions redistribute wealth. Megachurches should invest in community programs. Spiritual freedom without discrimination. No religious institution should have political power over others. Steps to implement. Support religious organizations that focus on social justice. Advocate for transparency in church finances. Protect sacred indigenous sites and traditions. Eight, sexual and gender justice, equity and safety in relationships. Current issues. Gender-based violence disproportionately impacts Black and brown women. Economic and social structures weaken Black family stability. Lack of comprehensive sex education. Solutions and actions. Gender pay, equity, ensure equal wages across all industries. Family and community support structures, strengthen networks that support Black families. Comprehensive sex education, promote knowledge-based, consent-focused curricula. Steps to implement. Advocate for wage transparency and gender pay equity policies. Support programs that provide childcare and parental leave. Push for holistic sex education in schools. 9. War and global justice. Peace over imperialism. Current issues. Militarization of Black and brown communities. The U.S. military disproportionately recruits from poor non-white neighborhoods. Resource extraction from non-white nations sustains global white supremacy. Solutions and actions. Demilitarization and disarmament. Reduce military spending and redirect funds to communities. End global economic exploitation. Create fair trade policies that prioritize local economies. Restorative foreign policy. Shift from interventionism to global cooperation. Steps to implement. Lobby for military budget cuts and reinvestment in social programs. Support economic justice movements in Africa, Latin America, and the Global South. Demand an end to corporate-backed regime changes and foreign interventions. Conclusion: a path forward. Justice is not an abstract concept. It is a set of principles that can be implemented in tangible ways. Through economic restructuring, political reform, and cultural transformation, a justice-based system can replace white supremacy. What you can do today: educate yourself and others about systemic justice. Support organizations working toward justice-based policies. Take action in your local community to build alternative systems. Justice is not a dream. Justice is a choice. Will you make it happen? Dear Dr. Neely Fuller Jr., thank you, inspiring me and generations to come. We will take what you taught us and use our gifts to pass it on to the next generation. Dr. Neely Fuller Jr. headed home on February 4, 2025. Here is to one of our Grandmaster teachers. Rest in power.